All right, let's do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Grammy Awards Online Entry Process Explained. My name is Michael Almanza, Senior Director in the Awards Department here at the Recording Academy. While we have a ton of great information to share during this webinar, I would first like to introduce the Recording Academy's Chief Awards and Global Industry Officer, Ruby Marchand.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 68th GRAMMY Awards online entry process, which you may know affectionately as we do as OEP. So those are the initials that are going to guide the next hour and a half together. This is a cherished annual event for us as the awards department. And we are so excited to walk you through the submissions process. It's going to be interactive. We have our entire team on standby, our genre managers, really everyone who lives and breathes awards all year long is here to answer your questions and make sure that you come out of this webinar feeling absolutely ready to submit your entries. That's the key here. This year, the Grammy Awards has expanded by one category. We now have 95 categories. Huge. And of course, it's very important to understand how and where to submit your entries. The submissions themselves need to be placed within categories that represent what we refer to as artist intent. So as you purposefully choose where to enter each of your submissions, please remember that we as an academy look at the entry as living and breathing in the category that the music creator believes it should belong in. And the webinar will address how to choose the appropriate category as well as every other aspect of OEP. So as I said, the entire awards team is here, but I want to give very special thanks to Michael Almanza, who leads OEP. He'll be leading the webinar. And Ralph and Shelley, who are key members of the awards team, will also be really involved as we look at all the questions that come up and make sure that they are all answered. And finally, I'd like to thank all the members of the Academy for joining us today and supporting the integrity of the Grammy Awards. We could not do any of this without you, so thank you. And Michael, now back to you.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Like she said, it's officially Grammy season, and we're going to spend the next hour making sure you guys are comfortable making entries. Whether you've made the entries before or it's going to be your first time, this walkthrough are going to help answer so many of those questions you probably already have. So just stick with us. And just to get an idea of who's joining us today, I want to send out a quick poll if you guys can answer that right now, just so we know, who we're talking to. Let's see. All right. While that's going up, I do have a ton of great help here today, specifically from two of our awards team members, Shelly Marie and Ralph Olivares. There they are. Where's Ralph? He'll pop up, hopefully. There he is. Thank you guys for helping out. They're going to be spotlighting those really, really big questions that come through the Q&A. We'll bring them up so that everyone hears the answers to these questions. And then the rest of the awards team and our membership team. We have a ton of people here in the Q&A answering your questions in real time. So as Ruby said, take advantage of that. Let us know what's on your minds, and our team will get back to you and make sure you get the answers to your questions. Oh, quick note there, because there's so many people joining us today, which is amazing, there's gonna be a lot of activity in that Q&A. So if you can, before submitting a question, just take a quick glance and see if your question has already been answered. It's very possible it was. And that'll help kind of clear things up for other questions to come through. Our awards team, we know that for so many of you, these entries represent your hard work, talent, and commitment to being a music creator and part of this industry. As we go through all of these entries, this is not lost on us. Thanks for taking so much of your time to help better understand this entry process. And with that, I would like to make sure we are all set here to get started. So let's get going. Okay. What is the online entry process? It is the process by which recordings are submitted for Grammy consideration, and this is the only process. We cannot take entries any other way other than this. OEP process that is open right now. The 68th Grammy Awards eligibility year is August 31st, 2024 through August 30th, 2025. What that means is the recordings being submitted must have been released commercially, nationally distributed, and available within that window through the end of the final ballot, which this year is actually January 5th, 2026. So the recordings have to be essentially available commercially, but also so that our voters can listen to these recordings being submitted through both rounds of voting for our voting membership. Any entry made during this process is an entry. It's not a nomination. We get this question a lot, and understandably so. But the nominations will be announced in November, early November, I believe, the 7th. But someone from my team, if you could put that in the chat, the nominations announcement date. Um, at that point, if you have submitted something that is nominated, or if you are a nominee, you will absolutely know on that day, November. But up until that point, it is an entry until nominations are announced. All right. Who can make entries? So this call, most of the people on this call are either going to be voting and professional members or media companies that have been registered and approved to make entries. So current voting and professional members in good standing can make entries right now. As an aside, this year is part of a one-time 20th anniversary um, special part of Grammy U is that Grammy U members can make entries this year, and they have a 2-week window to do so. Those deadlines are there's a bit more information for the Grammy U specific submitters, but for purposes of this call, we're going to be addressing voting, professional members, and media company information, just so everyone is aware. Entries can be made on behalf of a member or a non-member. This is another common question we get. People wanting to know that they're going by the rules, they're not breaking any rules, but the answer is yes. So if you're a member and someone in an artist or someone that wants to submit their recording isn't a member and ask you to make that entry for them, you can absolutely do that. That is completely fine. You can definitely submit if you're not attached to the project in any way, you can make that entry for a member or a non-member, and that is completely okay. Members, and we'll go through this part in a bit, but members, it's going to start for you at the Grammy dashboard. Once you're logged into your member dashboard, you'll see an OEP. It's called Submit to Online Entry Process button under your profile picture. I'll show you what it looks like. That is where you're going to start your entry process. And it's the same entry site and deadlines as media companies. So everyone's going to the same entry platform. It's not a different one for each type of submitter, all one platform. Doesn't matter if you're a media company or a member. And for voting and professional members specifically, same deadlines as media companies. And I'm sure the Q&A is kind of active already. So Shelly, Ralph, have you seen anything you want to pull up?
Yeah, all right. I have a good question that is it advisable or unadvisable for an artist to submit multiple times in the same category? It is not advisable. What you would run the risk of at that point is what we call splitting your vote. So we advise people to only select one entry per category to avoid that. Another question I have is, does the number of times a project has been submitted increase the chance of nomination? No. So what will actually happen is if you submit the same project in the same category multiple times in our system, it will just duplicate out. So there will only be one entry. So submitting it multiple times does not help the case. It can only show up once on the ballot in one category. Ralph, your turn.
Thanks, Shelly. I got a couple. Can you submit a physical release that is within the window if the digital was not? It was really example. It was released earlier. We go by what the earliest release date is, whether it's physical or digital. So keep that in mind. If the digital was released outside of the eligibility period, it is not eligible. So just keep that in mind. We always go with the earliest release date. Another question is, can an instrumental cover be eligible in any category? No, it cannot. It will be eligible in our performance categories. For instance, R&B performance, American Roots performance, anything that has a performance attached to it, including record of the year. but it will not be eligible in the song categories because songs can't be covers, and a song needs to have lyrics in order for it to be eligible. Another question I have is for eligibility purposes, if a double EP release comprises EP1 and EP2, both bearing the same title, should they be considered two distinct releases or a single release and therefore a single entry in any of the album categories? We don't really have a we don't really define an EP. It's either an album or it isn't. If it has the same title, we got to see how it looks on the DSPs. If it's under like one album title, then we would consider that one entire album. Because I don't know if you've seen on DSPs, sometimes you'll see like CD1 and CD2 under a same title. We consider that one album, so just keep that in mind. Back to you, Michael.
All right. Let's hop on over to a little information about the media companies. I know we have a lot of media companies on the call, which is great. Let's see. Okay. So in the blue text, I won't read it, but that's essentially our criteria to be an eligible company to make entries. This is specifically for companies to register, and we will review those registrations. And then if it meets our eligibility criteria, we'll approve, and you will get an email. Once you register, give us about a day or two, and you'll get an email stating if it was approved or it wasn't. If it was approved, that's when we charge the $180 registration fee, and then you get your login instructions. That's essentially how it works. Now, this is for media companies only. Like I said, members all through your Grammy dashboard. So that's two big differences there. We have a landing page on recordingacademy.com, and we can put that in the chat for media companies if they just need somewhere to go and get started with the registration process. We can provide that for you there. Okay, so we're going to throw a few deadlines at you, but these are the most important for OEP. We opened up for entries last Wednesday at 9 a.m. and we close Friday, August 29th at 6 p.m. That is a hard cutoff. If the entries are not submitted by 6 p.m. on Friday, August 29th, they will not be in the process. What I mean by that, it gets very technical, but if you're in there at 6 p.m. Pacific, this is all Pacific time, on Friday, and you're making your submissions, and you haven't hit submit yet, but you're in the site at 6 p.m. Pacific, there's a good chance that we wouldn't get those as well. So, long story short, I'll just say this 1,000 times, start early, make those submissions as soon as this webinar wraps. Just get them in early. It gives you time to reach out to us for any questions rather than waiting until that last day. So do your best to get started as soon as possible. If you're on this call, you're already, one step ahead, which is fantastic. Only one entry period. This is it. This is the window, July 16th through August 29th. And I'll jump into this next part a bit more, but we get the question of how can I make an entry if my recording doesn't come out until, say it comes out at the end of August. All I will say is you can still make the entry. I highly advise, even if it's not out yet, you can still submit the entry, and then you'll give us the DSP links at a later time. But in terms of making the entry, you could still submit it, and it'll allow you to make the entry without a DSP link, as long as you have all the other information. If you have all the basic recording information, still make the entry, get it in, and then we'll provide instructions on how to give us the links at a later date. So nothing can stop you really from making those entries as soon as you can. And we'll go into a little more detail there in a bit. Shelly and Ralph, anything else popping in?
Yeah, we got a couple. It says greetings, is album CD artwork packaging a category this year? Album artwork it's actually called album cover. It is a new category this year, so that should answer your question. Next question is released an album August 30th, 2024, which is a Friday as a standard release date. I'm guessing that would be outside the eligibility period. Yes, August 31st, 2024 is the first date of our 68th eligibility year. So August 30th is a day too early, so it wouldn't be eligible. But if you have tracks from that album, you could submit tracks from that album this year, as long as you didn't submit those tracks already. Next question, is it possible to register from Hungary? Yes, absolutely. We don't have any borders from registering. We have a global category, so that should tell you right there that we accept from all countries, as long as we see the music on one of the eligible DSPs that is in our resources page that Michael pointed out or is going to point out. And next question, is there any prerequisite, like number of records sold, to submit the song? No, there is no prerequisite. We don't look at number of streams. So as long as it's on the DSPs, it's eligible to submit and it's within the eligibility period. Shelly, you got anything?
Yes, I do. Okay, I've got release date. If a single was released before the eligibility window and then re-released on a full album within the eligibility window, is it still ineligible? That would actually be eligible. If you wanted to submit that song, it would be submitted as a track versus as a single. You would submit it as a track from that album that it was submitted on, or sorry, that it was released on, provided that the album did not win a Grammy previously. And then I've got how many songs am I allowed to submit to different categories. So you could submit as many songs as you feel are appropriate in different categories. You cannot submit one song into multiple genre categories. But of course, the screening committees, which Mikey will talk about later, will adjudicate whether or not those songs are appropriate for the categories that are being entered, but you can submit multiple songs in multiple sprint categories. Can a non-voting member be nominated? I heard a voting member say no. Yes, you absolutely can. There are no barriers to being nominated, and that includes whether or not you are a member. And finally, can we submit a release for multiple genres, example, pop and R&B? You cannot put a release in, sorry, let me rephrase that. You cannot put the same project in multiple genre categories. So if you're talking about an album, you cannot have an album both be in pop and R&B. However, if you are talking about different songs, yes, different songs could be submitted in different genres. Yes. That doesn't mean they'll stay there. Again, screening process will make sure that they have the right one. That's it for me. Back to you.
Thank you. And so I mentioned there's gonna be a lot of information. Obviously, there is. Thankfully, this webinar is being recorded and it will be made available in the coming days. And it'll be posted once we do have that recorded, finalized. It'll be posted on socials. It'll also be part of essentially any OEP email you receive from the Academy over the next few weeks. We're always going to put that link in there for you guys so you can see that video. But yes, this is being recorded and you can watch it as many times as you need. All right, so let's go back to a member and how to get to your dashboard. If you've never logged in yet, this is the quick, easy way to explain it. Grammy.com, you're going to see a login page there on the right, a login button on the right-hand side of the website. It'll take you to the actual login screen. You enter your information there, and you will see your dashboard. And if you have any problems on the logging inside for Grammy.com, I'll let our membership team put in the chat the best way to reach out if it's not membership@Grammy.com, but let us know, Mo, if you can, in that chat. Thank you. During this entry period, you're going to see the button that says Submit to Online Entry Process. And this is going to take you officially to the entry platform out of Grammy.com into our entry platform that everyone uses, and it looks something like this. This is just a screenshot, but we'll dive into it in just a sec. And at this point, if you're here, it is time to make entries, and we can we'll do an entry so you can see kind of start to finish how that all looks. Before I dive in, real quick, I want to throw it back to Shelly and Ralph if anything popped up.
I got one. My CD has 3 separate discs, 3 separate, very distinct versions of the same basic underlying musical piece, but in utterly different guises. Does it count as one or 3 separate pieces? We count it as one. We'd have to look at the DSP, but typically we'd count it as one. You can't have like your vocals in one category and then your instrumental in another of the same exact music. So we would count it as one and just choose a category that you think would be best appropriate for it. The other one is actually, Shelly, do you have anything?
I do. Let's see. Our team is working so great at answering these Q&A questions so fast that we're having a hard time finding ones that we could take. All right. So I've got, if this is someone's first time voting or submitting, what is the biggest, most valuable advice you can offer? Personally, I'm going to say being on this webinar, you've already done a great job being here and asking questions, following those resource documents that we provide, referring back to this recording once it's available, and also reaching out to the team. So reaching out to those email addresses that we are going to provide, reaching out to membership if there's a membership question, just being in touch with our staff and being in touch with the Academy will really help you make sure that you are going about submissions and voting in the best way possible. My other question I have is, can any genre enter the album artwork category? Yep, that is not genre specific. That is open to all. Ralph, you got anything else?
Yeah, there's a question. What is the process for Grammy for Social Change? I'm assuming that they are referring to the Harry Belafonte Song for Social Change Award. All you do is go to the link. There is a link on the resources page at the bottom. Mikey's pointing it right now. It says just click on that link and then you could submit your music right there. It'll have the rules and the guidelines behind that as well. That's all I got.
I'd actually jump in with one more just because we're getting a lot of questions about this. For any genre-specific questions, you guys can reach out to us and we'll make sure we connect you with the correct genre-specific manager. However, we're getting a lot of video questions and I manage video, so I'm going to answer that live. I see, do you submit separate entries for music video of the same song that you're submitting reporting album? Just as an overarching rule, the music video category has no bearing or no effect on any singles you enter. You can submit different songs. You can submit a song that has come out many years ago if the video is within the eligibility period. So just a kind of overall rule about music videos is they have no effect on any singles entered or any singles in the past. All right, Michael, back to you.
So you're here. Thank you for those answers, guys. You're here. This is the entry site. What to do first. I will tell you before you start making entries. I'll show you the resources section is key to this whole thing because everything we're talking about and a ton more is going to be available for you right now. So if you click the resources section, there are a handful of amazing PDFs, and I highly recommend checking them out. I'll highlight a few that I think are worth your time if you're new to this process. Your Grammy categories, that's just a listing of the categories, handy to have. Not necessary only because as you start making entries, it'll start listing out. You'll see that list of categories, but not a bad thing to have next to you when you're doing this. Category description guide. This is a big one, and we're making sure it's very well known that it's on various places throughout the entry site. But what'll happen is on any of these PDFs, you're just gonna click it, it'll download. This is the category description guide. This is exactly that. Every category, all 95, the official category description is here. I would highly recommend, you already have kind of an idea what categories you're gonna enter, but read those descriptions and it'll help you know, what, this does make sense for me. I'm going to move forward in this category, or actually, it should be a different category. All that information is accessible in this document. I recommend, downloading it and having it convenient while you're making your entries. We have a link to our complete rule book. It's a great read if we're not expecting everyone to read the rule book, but if you want to do a deep dive, we have plenty of definitions in there. That'll link you to the rule book. And then some tips, some FAQ type documents. This is a big one. So as part of every single entry that comes through, you're going to need to upload what we call label copy or liner notes, which is essentially the most official document you have for this album, for this recording. And I get asked often, what's the difference? Is one better than the other? Label copy or liner notes. If it's coming from a media company, this likely is going to be a label copy. There's a specific format that has to abide by, but it's essentially the same information in two different formats. If it's coming from a label, like I said, the label copy is likely going to be there. If not, if this is a self-released album or self-released recording, we have something that'll be helpful for you. And if you click that link and open this up, this is the template. So this is the absolute basic information that we need you to upload with your entry. You can literally copy and paste this. You can use this document and fill it in right from here. You just have to create a copy for yourself and do it that way. But this is what we're looking for when we say label copy. Same information as the liner notes, I mean, but it's all just two different ways to get it to us. It is required for every entry. So spend some time there gathering that info now as early as you can. And then as Ralphie pointed out, this link, this is not the Harry Belafonte song for social change is not part of this OEP process. It is a separate award. Clicking that link is going to take you to a separate entry platform, which it's open now. If you want to make entries there, completely separate, just two different processes. So resources, I can't stress enough, just spend some time in there and it'll be helpful to you. Contact, if you have any tech related issues on the site, so a button's not working, you're unable to upload documents, Grammy@gangaroo.com is our site developers. They will help you through those type of issues. Anything else is online entry at Grammy.com for eligibility, non-technical questions. Send those to online entry or our awards helpline. If someone from the awards team can put the helpline number in the chat, if not already, calling that number, you can get routed to specific genre managers and genres. So call that line, you'll get sent to a specific person, which we hope is helpful for everyone. Outside of that, this is it. This is the entry site. We will take a look at submitting, let's do an album. And actually before that, let's see, Shelly, Ralph, anything coming through you want to spotlight?
Sure. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Okay, got it. Can you submit in one category but vote in a different category? Yes, where you submit and where you vote are not related. However, of course, as always, we do ask that where people vote is where they have the most expertise, where they're most knowledgeable, where they work professionally most of the time. So those are completely unrelated. You do not have to vote in where you submit, and vice versa. I also have, can a song that has been entered in previous Grammy years ago, written and produced as a duet, be entered as a new solo work? So it cannot be submitted again as a song if the lyrics and melody have been previously released. However, if it is a new recording of the same lyrics and melody and now it is solo work, it can be submitted in performance categories. So we are at that point adjudicating the artist's performance, not the songwriting. And so there it would be eligible so long as it meets all of our other eligibility requirements. Ralph, what do you have?
Thanks, Shelly. I have a few of them. Once a submission has been accepted, what restrictions are there in terms of campaigning for votes, emails okay, listening sessions? I would kindly direct you to our FYC rules, which is again on the resource page. That page right there is your best friend. It has everything that we even go to for a lot of our information. Mikey's highlighting it right there. Next question is, what are the AI generated art rules for the album artwork category? It's the AI rules applies to all our categories. We do accept AI generated stuff, but it has to have a human element to it, and it has to have more than just a minimum human element to it. So just keep that in mind. I guess the best advice, if there is any sort of AI involved in any of your creations, just please be honest. When you are making the submission, there is a field when you're making the submission to tell us exactly what is AI generated and what is not, what is human and what is not. We will not award AI. We only will award a human. So just keep that in mind. Next question. I'm an individual voting member, independent artist, but also I own a release through my own record label. Do I submit as an artist or as a media company? There is no difference when you make the submission. I guess the one advantage of being a member is you get 5 gratis entries, and if you're a music creator, you get to vote. So I would recommend trying to go the voting member route before you do the media route, because it's they both will allow you to make the entry. The only difference is a member will give you 5 gratis entries. Next question is, which category would a soulful house song be submitted, and is there a performance for it? We do have we have a few dance categories, a couple track categories. We have a dance electronic recording, a dance pop recording. If you're unsure, we do have, again, on the resources page, we have a category description guide. I'd recommend going there, and you could see the definitions for each of our categories to see what would be most appropriate for your entry. And this applies to anything, not just house music. It applies to anything. So I would recommend going there. Next one is, how can a deluxe album be eligible but not the original album? Is because the release timeline, what percent needs to be new? We do have a a rule in our album definition, which is on our basic guidelines. Updated, revised, or expanded versions of previously submitted albums are not eligible. So that kind of sounds like a deluxe. It needs to be 75% previously unreleased and newly recorded material in order to qualify as an album. So 75% is the threshold. And Mikey's highlighting it right there under the album definition. I would when you get a chance, go and review that section because it'll give you an idea of what's eligible and what's not. And if you're uncertain, feel free to reach out to one of us, who are to one of the genre managers. We'll kind of give you a heads up, like, this wouldn't be eligible. We're happy to, we're happy to try to save you the trouble of telling you if it's eligible or not. Shelly, do you have any more?
I do, and I wanted to just remind everybody to please use the Q&A feature if you have any questions, because we are not able to answer questions in the chat. Please keep the chat to just introducing yourselves and, maybe saying where you're from and things that we started out with. But if you have any questions, please make sure you select the Q&A down at the bottom so we can make sure that we do not miss your question. I do have two more. I have our EPs eligible of an album. Yes, provided that the EP is either 5 songs, minimum of 5 songs and 15 minutes long, or 30 minutes long with any number of tracks. So that one gets a little bit tricky, and that does really matter when it comes to qualification. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out to us. But again, an EP can be submitted as an album if it is a minimum of 5 tracks and 15 minutes, or any number of tracks, 30 minutes long. I have another question of, if a single was previously released on its own and is now on a new album, is that counted as previously released? If it was released in the previous eligibility period, then no, that does not count as previously released. If it was released prior to last year's eligibility period, it would count as previously released. Also, if you submitted that song as a single previously in the awards process, then yes, we would count that as previously released. Okay, Michael, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you. So if you're still here, that means I think you want to see at least one entry get made for testing purposes, of course. So I'm going to make an album entry, and we'll go, and I'll go step by step on what you can expect. So, well, before I even get there, you're going to see a couple options up on this home screen: album categories, songs, singles, and tracks. These two are going to make up, um, 80% of the categories that we have. And you can tell if you scroll down, this is the majority where you're going to spend your time, generally speaking. As you go to the right, you're going to start seeing the more specialized categories: best new artist, producer of the year, songwriter of the year, its own section. Craft categories, those are split up into two. Those are exactly that. They are more craft specific. That's where you're going to find the new category: album cover, music video, music film is there. And then on this other craft categories that says physical product required, there are 4 categories that require physical product. Actually, it's 3. Immersive audio album can go either way, but I'll get into that. But these can require physical product. There's a separate process for that. I'll touch on that again later. And then classical. Classical is so unique, and the data we require is so unique that we've created its own workflow. So if you're entering in classical, other than producer of the year classical, which is above, the rest of the classical categories will be here. Actually, both engineered album categories are also in the craft category. So most of the classical categories are here for you. But if you have any questions, just reach out and we will help get you started. So for the purposes of today, I'm going to do a quick album entry. I'm going to use one of last year's winners. But the first thing you're going to see is the category description guide that we keep mentioning. This is, as often as you're on a screen, you will see this link. So there it is there. That'll open up that PDF. This is a quick listing of the categories you're about to see as options. And some helpful information at the bottom of this, more about the process, some common reasons for disqualifying something, Um, that is just so you're aware, when we have questions, when the awards team has any questions or we find something is ineligible, we will reach out to the submitter at least twice for a response, or whether just to notify you this is changing, this is ineligible, whatever it may be. We are gonna contact the submitter um, in any of those cases, just so you're aware. That is kind of our policy internally. As Ralph mentioned, or Shelly as well, like splitting votes is a thing that it does happen when you enter this multiple tracks in the same category. Keep that in mind when you're making your entries, that more is not always better. Just pick that, if you can, pick that best one that you have and submit that. Um, but other than that, this is strictly informational, this page. If you scroll down, hit next on the bottom right screen, bottom right corner, this is where you're really going to start to want to pause and take your time here. Once again, the category description guide is there, but this is where you are going to select the categories that'll determine what information we're asking for you in the next, 2 steps. So in this case, to give you a quick, overview, the minute you click on something, in this case, album of the year, it's going to show you the definition. This is the same category description that is in the category description guide. You're just seeing it actively as you kind of pick things. You'll see that same definition or category description pop up. And that works for all of our workflows. In this case, I want to enter in, let's see, best alternative music album. If I click that, you'll notice that everything else grays out except for album of the year. Um, the way this works is, say you have 5 albums to enter. You can't do it all at once. You can't say, these are the 5 categories I want. In certain situations, like if I'm entering one album and then I want to also enter that album of the year, that is allowed. That is something that you can do at the same time. You would just select that there. But for the purposes of this test, I'm only going to enter in best alternative music album. I've read that description. I feel like the track or the album is appropriate there, and I will move forward. Some categories are going to add an additional step at the bottom and say, just to make sure, if there are categories where we feel it helps to provide additional clarification on the category description. So this is another extra little button. Read that through. This clarifies the category even more. I agree with it. I'm going to move forward and hit next. Okay, so this is where you are going to spend the most time, and that is completely the way it should be, because this is where you're giving us that ever important recording data information. At the top, the first thing you're going to come across is the generative AI question. This is part of every single entry, and this is on our system for the submitters. We are asking, does this use generative AI? If no, you click no, you keep going. If it does, that's fine. Just give us as much information as you can in the field below, and we will be referencing that when we are verifying all of our entries. So the AI question up top, it's got to be yes or no. And please give us as much information as you can if it's a yes to that. Okay, so if I keep scrolling down, the first thing you're going to do is select the artist type. You're going to have a couple options. It's either solo, established, duo, or group, feature, collaboration, or various. I'm going to do a solo just to keep this simple. I already know what I'm entering. But if you're starting from scratch and you need a tool to help you out here, you can do that as well. So right here, you're going to see a bar called search powered by Muso AI. That is essentially a search function, is exactly what it is. If you populate that with your recording, it'll autofill some of these fields for you, but it's not locked in. So I'll enter, because this one, and I'm a fan myself. Let's do da, da, da. Let's do Saint Vincent, as she won this category last year for the 67th. Okay, I found this. That's exactly what I want to add. Add to entry, and you'll see, boom, there's information that's been populated in there. You can edit this information. you can say, oh, you know what, it's actually something else. It's not correct, or the UPC is different. You can edit that. Nothing is locked in at this point. Or you don't use the search function at all. Completely up to you. It is a nice feature though. Um, and we know a lot of people were happy that we added it last year. So at this point, I'll go through each of the fields briefly because I know this is a lot of info, and I definitely want to leave more time for Q&A. So I'll go over this section, and then we'll throw it to Shelly and Ralph. But the artist performing name, it's in this case it's St. Vincent. That's correct. The ISNI, if you know what that is, um, great, provide it. If not, it says right there it's optional. Album title, anything with the star is going to be required. Album title's done. Recording date. If you click this button here, it'll kind of give you a little more information what we're looking for. We're not looking for exact dates, but if say this album was recorded um, June 2023 through April 2024, just using that as test information. Give us that information. The more exact you are, the better. It helps our team. But this is what we're looking for. Well, when did the recording process start for this album? When did it end, more or less? That's what you're going to put there. Release date, for purposes of this, I'm going to um, use that, although that might not work. So this is a good point. This is a calendar function, so it's not going to allow you to pick something outside of the August 31st, 2024 through August 30th, 2025 window. This populated because I'm using an older album, but to proceed, I'm going to have to pick something within that window. This will tell you if it's outside of eligibility. So for this case, I'm going to use that date. UPC, we need that. Credited record label, St. Vincent. Sure, but if you get, if you're an artist self-releasing, you can put self-released, you can put NA, you can put independent. We just need something there. This is not information that's going to populate on the ballot. This is more for the awards team to help in what we do in verifying all of these entries. Distribution. This is any link. So this could be Spotify. We're going to ask for the DSP links in a bit, but this could be a Spotify link, a Apple link. It could be Bandcamp if it's a physical release. Really, any link has to be put here. It has to be a copy and pasted from your browser, put into there, and then it'll allow you to proceed. So for this, I'm using a link like that. And then artist intent and additional eligibility information. This is big. This is optional, but we highly encourage submitters to add information here. And what this is, and it was mentioned by Ruby earlier on, what this is, it allows our team to hear directly from the submitter, which could be the artist, it could be the media company, whoever's making the submission, why this category is being chosen musically. Why is this category? Why is this being put into best alternative album over best rock album? Say we would like to see those details because we have a screening process that happens after the entry period closes. We make sure that all the entries are put into the most appropriate categories, and we absolutely want to respect artist intent, meaning where they want their music submitted as much as we can. So the more information you can give us, why is this in this category? Be as detailed as you can. We would really appreciate that. If you're a media company, try to reach out to your artists to get their input. That always helps our screening process move a lot smoothly. And once again, the category description guide is here right at the bottom. There's a link there if you need to reference it again. But before I go further, because that was, a lot of information, I want to throw it to Shelly and Ralph for anything they're seeing.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Okay, I had here. Oh, good question. Someone said, why is R&B, rap, and spoken word all in one? I thought poetry spoken word had its own category. Yes. So there's a difference between field and category. So when we reference a field, what you're looking at is kind of the umbrella term of that group of categories, right? So you'll see a field of rap, R&B, spoken word, and then it had the individual categories that you were submitting in underneath it. Let's see. Could you please clarify the current best practices for FYC? So just so you know, the best way to get your FYC questions answered is to go through those resource docs that Michael's provided. They're on your OEP dashboard. You can also find them on Grammy.com. That is going to be the most comprehensive way to understand the FYC, the for your consideration, and voting guidelines. Or sorry, not voting guidelines, advertising guidelines. So please utilize that resource. If a song or entry album is entered in the wrong genre, will someone slip it into the correct genre, or will the entry be dismissed or disqualified? Michael touched on this a moment ago, but just to reiterate, we do have several screening committees that are made up of experts in each genre field who listen to everything that is submitted. They discuss and they vote on making sure that it was submitted in the correct genre based on the Reporting Academy's guidelines of that genre. And if not, they will vote to send it to another screening committee who also has to listen and also has to vote to agree that it is supposed to be in a different genre. If that happens, you will get a notification prior to the ballot going live that your entry was moved into a different genre. You can always call us and ask us just to make sure before you do any FYC ads, anything like that. You can always ask us where the entry was left or where it will appear on the ballot. And along those same lines, Michael again said this, but to reiterate, we will never disqualify an entry without talking to you first. We will always we will send you 2 notices via email. The email that is attached to the entry will get those notices. So please make sure whatever media company or membership you are using to submit, you have access to that inbox, because you will get notified before we disqualify it. And see, is there a way to tell if somebody else has submitted an entry so I can save my 5 gratis entries? Again, that's a reach out to us answer. You could give us a call on the hotline. You can give us an email. We could double check our system and see if it's already been submitted and let you know. Let's see. That is all I have on my list right now. Ralph, do you have something?
Yeah, I got a few. I'm gonna combine these 2 questions there because they're kind of related. Where can we find your contact information in the event we have any questions after this webinar? Also, what is the help number? You could get a hold of us depending by calling our helpline, which is 877-637-6816. When you call that, you will get a directory that will mention all the genres, and that when you select the correct correct genre, or the genre that you want to get a hold of, that'll connect you with one of the genre managers. So that's how you can get a hold of us. Also, is there a way I can schedule a one-on-one call with a genre expert? I would say absolutely. Just give us a call on that number I told you. I mean, just keep in mind that as time goes by, we're going to get busier and busier, but I'll always try to find time to meet with you if you have a question or anything. We're here to help. So just keep that in mind. Next question is, if tracks were released in 2023, 2024, and now I put them in an EP, can this EP be submitted? Again, we don't really have a definition for an EP. It's either an album or it's not. There are 2 definitions of an album: 5 tracks, 15 minutes or more, or any number of tracks, 30 minutes or more, is considered an album to us. Now, with regards to the tracks released in 2023, 2024, if they were singles released in last year's eligibility period, which is September 16, 2023 through August 30, 2024, they can be on an album this year as long as those singles were not submitted. They would be. Let me go back to an album definition. An album definition must be 75% previously unreleased and newly recorded. So we consider singles from last year as previously unreleased, and as long as those singles were not submitted into the entry process last year, and as long as they were not part of an album in any previous eligibility year. So hopefully that answers your question with singles from last year. And again, EP, it's either an album or it isn't. So if the album is released in this eligibility year, you can submit it. Again, we have to do the calculations on whether or not it's 75% or more previously unreleased and newly recorded. Next question is, when does voting begin? And do you have any recommendations on how to prepare in terms of the amount of time to set a time for the process? I mean, voting begins, we have 2 rounds of voting. The first round begins October 3rd and it's through October 15th. So I would say just set aside a couple weeks to vote. Keep in mind the first round ballot, you're going to get a lot of entries. So I would just set some more time aside for voting in that first round, as opposed to the second round where you're just voting on the nominations. And the final round voting begins on December 12th, 2025, and it's through January 5th, 2026. So there's a lot more to cover in the first round versus the final round. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to set some time aside for voting. Next question is, can a submission be made to both the Harry Belafonte Song for Social Change category as well as another general category? Again, Mikey mentioned it earlier. The Harry Belafonte Song for Social Change Award is the CEO's Special Merit Award. It is separate from the online entry process. So yes, you can submit the same song in both different areas. I guess that'd be a way to say it. Next question is, if the album was recorded in 2023 but released in 2025, is it still eligible? Again, this goes to the album. The album definition is 75% of newly recorded, so that means 75% has to have been recorded within 5 years from the release date. So if 75% is new recorded, meaning 5 years, and if this is 2023, yes, that is definitely within 5 years from 2025. When it starts to get 2020 and older, then that starts to get a little tricky, and we'd have to do the calculations on determining if it is eligible and newly recorded. Next question, I'm going to include you on this one, Mikey. Will the link to this webinar be emailed to us individually? Maybe you could kind of spotlight where this webinar will be.
Yeah, it'll be email. So you've already received an email saying OEP is open. We're going to send a few more over the next few weeks saying, the early entry deadline is ending soon. The deadline for OEP is ending. There's going to be various emails, and every single email that goes out to you will have the link, if not the video embedded in the email, as well as once this is ready to post, it's going to be on socials. You're going to see it, and if you don't, reach out and we'll send you the link.
Thank you. That's all I've got. If you got any more, Shelly, feel free to take notes.
No, all good. Back to Michael.
All right. So with the few minutes we have left, I'll wrap this part up, and anyone that wants to stay on past once this hour is over, we can address the Q&A a bit more and dive into those types of questions after this. But I definitely want to make sure you guys see this part of it as we wrap up an entry. So we're on the same form that we started with, so it does take some time. And if you scroll down, we left off here. This is where you're going to give us those links. And every time you click on one, say if I want to give Amazon, Spotify, and Tidal, these are URLs DSP specific. So this will only recognize a Spotify link. This field will only recognize an Amazon link. This one will only, that type of deal. It's not gonna, you can't put a Spotify in an Amazon box essentially. So so just know that as you go, and you're going to want to copy and paste the links from the DSPs directly. That's the easiest way to do it. If, like I mentioned way back an hour ago, if you have something you're submitting that it's not out yet but will be, and you still want to make the entry, this is that button that allows you to do that. So if you do this, you click the link is not available yet, you can keep going with the entry, get us link later. We'll provide instructions on that. In this case, I'm going to try if I can populate a Spotify link. Let's see. Just because we're low on time, I'm going to use this actual function to keep going with the entry to show you what's next. Upload media basically means give us that information that we need for that label copy and liner notes. That's the easiest way to explain that part. Let's see. All right, there's my St. Vincent label copy. You're going to click upload. You're going to pull it from your computer. Should be fairly quick. Once you see this file here, it's uploaded. It's attached to the entry now. Contact information, optional. That's only if you're submitting, maybe a media company submitting many entries and they want to provide all their contact information in one document. Otherwise, keep going. Don't worry about that if you're not making many entries. Press photo. Another optional, would love to have as part of the entry, but completely optional. If there's a press photo of the artist of the recording you're submitting, great. I'm going to click next to show you what's on this next screen is essentially saying I provided all the information for as best I can for the eligibility credited individuals. Click that. And it's going to take you to contact information. Now, this is contact information for who could be, if it's nominated, we were looking for that contact information. Who would be reaching out to in the event of a nomination. We're looking for the most direct contact information as possible. So preferably not the label information or the media company, but the most direct. I'm going to use some test information there. Keep going. The Academy writes, I do read this at least once. You're going to see it at the end of every entry, but I would recommend just reading these bullet points. There's some important information in there, but it's saying you've read and understand the rights. As you're making this entry, you scroll all the way down. You have to agree to proceed. And then you're finally, after all that, you're at a summary page. You can just read it down. This is everything you've entered. Once again, if you give yourself enough time and you catch a mistake, scroll all the way down and go to previous, go back a couple steps. But if everything looks good to you, everything for me at least, solo artist, St. Vincent, that's the information that I entered and it's correct. You're going to scroll all the way down and you're going to have two options. If you're done making entries and you're ready to be just done, submit and pay now, or you're not done, you're going to make some more entries, complete and return to the dashboard. It'll take you here. We're back at the start to do this all again if you're making more entries. One thing I want to highlight is the submit completed entries process, and I'll do that as soon as I go over the pricing because that's important. So I'm going to hop over to back to this and we'll go over pricing and then I'll throw it back to showing around real quick. But you can see that, there we go. Okay, so members, at any point during this entry period, you have 5 free entries to use. Those don't go away. You use, do take advantage and use those 5 free. And think of it as 5 categories. If you try to combine an entry like Album of the Year and Best Alternative Album, that's 2 entries, even though you might be doing it at the same time. So 5 entries equals 5 categories. That's the pricing structure for members up top, and then let's see, and then media companies at the bottom. Okay, and then as you're going and you're finishing this process, you're going to need to finish what I was going to show you, and it's this. All right. So once you're done, like it tells me I have 3 that are ready to be submitted. I'm going to hit submit completed entries. And you're going to start, it's like a cart you've seen when you do online shopping. You're just going to see that. You're going to start saying, yes, those are the 3 I want to submit. And you go from there and you make those submissions. Now, regardless of whether you're a member using only free entries, meaning you are not paying for anything, you're still going to go through this process of submit completed entries. The only difference being we're not going to collect any payment information. The minute you go past your 5 free entries, if you're a voting or professional member, is when we will collect, on that 6th entry, we will collect whatever the entry fee may be. Media companies, same deal there. No gratis entries, but submit completed entries. Every submitter, regardless of you're paying or not, is going to go through this process. You are done once you get an email from us saying, congratulations, you submitted, and you could breathe that sigh of relief, finally, that you've made your entries. Now, if you want to go back and you say, and OEP is still open, and you say, I actually have 2 more to make, you can totally do that. It's not a one and done submission process. You make 5, then you realize a week later you have 2 more to make, and then a week after that you have 3 more to make. As long as it's before or on or before August 29th, 6 p.m. Pacific, then you can keep making those entries. You're not going to be closed out of the entry of this platform. So keep going back to it as much as you want. And no refunds for any of the entries, even if we find them to be ineligible. That's just a policy. And then, like I showed you, this is the cart. This is essentially what you're going to see. That email. If you don't get an email saying congratulations and you've completed this part of the process and you're done, you don't see an email, please reach out to us at onlineentry@grammy.com just to make sure we're seeing it correctly, and we can always send you that receipt or invoice or the confirmation separately. Be on the lookout. It might be in your spam. They tend to end up there. So check all that. Reach out if you don't see it. Let's see. Those few craft categories I mentioned that require physical product, there is a separate email that will come to you saying, hey, you submitted in Best Historical Album. please send us whatever 2 or 3 copies of that to that address that you see on screen. That is all in a separate email. If you didn't enter in those craft categories, don't even worry about it. But if you did and you have questions on the packing list, reach out again, call that helpline. We'll direct you to the those on our team that manage those categories. Before I go through the kind of summary of everything we've talked about, I want to throw it to Shelly and Ralph. Are you seeing any big questions you want to bring up?
Yeah, just a couple things to clarify at this point mostly. Somebody asked if you could submit a Linktree link, and the answer to that is no. We do need each individual separate link. So if you have a Linktree that includes Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, Tidal, we do need individual links. Only one is required, but it is always a good idea to include as many as exist. And then somebody else, similar question, asked about what kind of links qualify for the distribution. I know Michael covered this. There's also a document in the resources page, but just to give an idea, I did mention Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and Tidal. There's also Pandora, Deezer, Live One, Napster. There's a comprehensive list in that online entry portal, so make sure that you reference that resource. Somebody else also asked, and I think this could use some clarifying, is can I submit one song to different categories? So you can submit the same track to a song category as well as a performance category. For example, you can submit a track to country song as well as best country solo performance or best country duo group performance. However, you cannot submit something to best country song and best rock song. So it cannot be in two different genre categories at the same time. Ralph, what do you have?
Thanks, Charlie. I got a couple. First one is, how would the single that I'm releasing now be considered new or not new if the record will be part of something they're going to submit next year? So that single that's released this year is going to be part of an album in next eligibility year. For purpose of defining an album, we would consider that previously unreleased, the single that's released this year, next year, as long as you don't submit that single in this year's awards process. If you do submit it, when calculating that 75%, if it's new or not, don't include the single that you submitted this year. Next question is, what are the entry dates and process for the Harry Belafonte song for Social Change? The submission dates are mirrored the same as the OEP dates, and that is July 16th through August 29th. So August 29th is going to be the last day for the submission for Harry Belafonte. Next one for streaming. When if you check that the link is not ready yet, the additional pop test deadline is August 29th, or you may be disqualified. I'm concerned that the album I'm submitting will not have a DSP link in time. So yeah, there is an option when you're making the submission in OEP that the release that your album or track hasn't been released yet. Just select that box, and if for some reason it's not released in time by August 29th, just send us an email and to request to withdraw it. It's not going to be a problem at all. Next question is, who is considered a media company, and is there a resource to read about it? There is a media company registration link, I believe, on the resources tab, correct, Mikey? And with that said, you can read what we consider a media company. So that's all I got, unless you have something else, Charlie.
No, back to Michael.
We could post it as part of the link for the YouTube. We'll do that just so it's always in one place. But if anyone from the awards team can grab it, it's recordingacademy.com, and it's the artist record label media registration webpage. If you could throw that in the chat in the next minute or two, that'd be great. If not, don't worry about it. But yes, thank you all for joining us. A quick last bullet list just to go over the major parts of all this. So we have the submit completed entry process. I cannot overstate how important that is. If you make the entries and you just don't finish that part, we'll never see them. They didn't never come to us, the Recording Academy. So you have to do that final piece, and then you get that email. Then you know for a fact that it is with the Recording Academy. That check your spam though, because sometimes these confirmation emails end up there. Physical product, we went over that. Any questions on that? Online entry at grammy.com or call us. Yes. Oh, so a few days prior to October 3rd, before first round voting begins, we're going to send an email to all submitters showing the final placement of their entries. This means um, any moves, anything that moved categories, you're going to see where everything ended up. You're going to get this no matter what. If we had no moves in any of your submissions, you're still going to get that final email saying this is where everything's at. And then you can use that as you proceed for FYC type things and getting ready to tell people, announce to people that you want them to listen to your recordings. FYC policies are in our resource section. Definitely read those. Um, and then any other questions outside of that? I just want to throw it one more time to Shelly and Ralph. Are there anything you want to address before we wrap this up?
I got a pretty
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
Tyler. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the biggest thing that I want to say is if you are either still confused or if you didn't feel like you got your question answered, please, please, please go into that dashboard, click that resources tab in the upper left. All of those resources are going to have just about every single answer you need. And then if you still can't find it, please reach out to us and we will help walk you through this. So if you didn't get anything answered, the information is absolutely there and we're still happy to help after this webinar.
I Thanks, Shelly. And then the one that I got is an album question. So an unsubmitted extended album released this year will not be held to the 75% rule. All albums submitted this year will be held to the 75% rule. With regards to deluxe, extended, all that, we would look at if it was released last year and if it's just we would just look at the 75% rule. If it wasn't submitted last year, and it hits and it's 75% new material, this year, we would consider it, but again, we'd have to look into it further just to verify if it's eligible or not. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Shelly and Ralph, for spotlighting those big questions. The rest of the awards team and membership in the Q&A. I know that gets very active. Thank you for submitting questions and then for those teams to respond to those questions. There's a ton of information. My last piece of advice as we wrap this up and welcome you to the 68th Grammy season is to start as soon as you can. You now have a brief walkthrough of the process. The video will be ready in a few days. If you can get in there and start looking at resources, do that as soon as you can. And you're still on the early side. There's still some time for the early entry pricing. We closed down the entry process on August 29th, 6 p.m. Pacific. So you have some time. Just start as early as you can and you should be in really good shape. Reach out to us. We have a full team ready to answer your questions, and we're here to make this process enjoyable for you because this is a big deal and we understand that. So I think that'll do it for us. Thank you all for attending and happy submitting. Welcome to the 68th Grammy Award season, everyone. Thanks a lot.